Chairman, Ranking Member, General. What Senator Carper just said is absolutely true. When we come together with the high-risk list, this is not a list produced in a partisan way, and in fact, it is not a list that reaches a conclusion. What it does is it points out the potential for savings, the potential to mitigate losses, and the risk of losses. Now, if you come off the list, it's generally good. I will tell you that this is one year in which I'm a little concerned that the IRS has come off the list. I think as Americans, when we look at 21 new taxes that came out of the affordable health care, when we look at the changes that took effect in the very last minute, I think if the GAO had anticipated the kind of last-minute things that the IRS was going to have to plug in, they might have said, we're taking him off the list there, but for the actions of Congress in the last few minutes, actually in the first few minutes of the new year. So we're going to look at everything on the list and some that are not on the list. I also want to point out that we're going to look in the order of dollars, and with the Speaker's leadership, we're going to look at it throughout the Congress. We're the primary and preeminent oversight committee of the Congress. But every one of our committees of the House has a responsibility to do oversight. They've been configured to do oversight. I came here just from the Judiciary Oversight meeting. And in fact, there's a commitment by the Speaker and the leader to have us split up this work and do it throughout the Congress. And I'm looking forward to working with all those committees on it. Today, we will be sending footnoted copies to the other committees suggesting areas that they may, in their primary jurisdiction, concentrate on. The Senator mentioned Homeland Security. There's a specific committee that we hope will look at some sub-areas, even though they have improved. I want to touch for a moment, though, on how climate change was dealt with in this report, because I don't want to walk away from anything in this report. We will look at all the recommendations of Gene's. The fact is, though, when you look at climate change and Hurricane Sandy and others, it points out that we have underprepared through FEMA and through our emergency funds, including flood control, for a generation. For the 12 years that I've served here in Congress, we have almost always had a supplemental as though we didn't anticipate a flood, a hurricane, or in my home state, an earthquake or a fire. These events continue to happen. These events are primarily the responsibilities of the cities and states. And I will point out that we can no longer assume that the federal government will come in with an emergency supplemental every time there is an occurrence. We have a responsibility to be proactive in asking the states and the cities to be prepared to meet more of these requirements, proactive in making sure that we withhold the funds either through insurance funds or through actual appropriations that are appropriate for the real anticipated events. Lastly, I would say that the people of Florida, the people of California know very well that you prepare your buildings and your building ideas for hurricanes in Florida. You prepare your buildings for earthquakes in California and for fires. We in the federal government must do oversight about how you mitigate what nature either has been doing to us or may do to us. And I think that's a nonpartisan issue. The issue of whether or not there is a dramatic increase will continue to be something that's talked about here in the House and Senate for time to come. But the fact that the Comptroller General has made it very clear that we have not prepared properly, that the federal government has a financial risk that we have not properly mitigated, I think is a wake-up call to all of us that we can't assume that the budget is one thing and then add 50 or 100 billion in supplemental throughout the year. So I'm going to recognize the ranking member, but I would like Mr. Darrell to be fully recognized for the fact that he took on this risk, took on the risk not per se because climate change is the direct risk, but there are so many things that come out of federal spending that in fact are not properly prepared, and that our committee looks forward to working on.